All right. So, obviously, the first topic this week, one of the major stories was Trump's foreign trip,
Right.
his first foreign trip as president. That he took this week, which concluded with the G7.
About 8 days long.
About 8 days long, 8 or 9, 8.5, somewhere in there. Yeah, and not a totally like. I think Trump should probably be grateful that he got out of the country for a little bit because it was the least controversial week of his entire presidency so far.
Right. I guess kind of widely been touted as successful as. Now, I have seen a lot of places saying the bar was set low and all of that type of stuff, which, that's fine.
Haters gonna hate.
Yeah.
But so obviously we'll get into that. We've got an article that we'll just kind of break down a little bit of stuff. Trump on this 8-day trip visited first Saudi Arabia. I believe did he follow that up by Israel?
Yeah.
And then to the Vatican, and then concluded with the G7 summit. So pretty big schedule there.
Pretty aggressive.
Too busy to take questions from the media, I suppose.
I think it was the first time a president didn't do a press conference while he was doing all these
all
things.
of his buddies next to him were.
Right.
So that was interesting. But I'll let you go ahead and kind of jump into the article.
Right. So this is coming from Politico. I saw quite a few different articles that were basically saying these are the top 5 things to take away. Some of them were good, some of them weren't. CNN's was garbage, and NPR's was. It was. It didn't focus on the things that I think were the actual takeaways. Like it just kind of focused on what it wanted to talk about. So I thought this one was pretty good. First off, it says the optics were the message. Trump glowed as he placed his hands on an illuminated orb next to King Salman at the Global Center for Combating Extremist Ideology in Saudi Arabia on Sunday.
That doesn't sound written with a bias.
I mean, obviously that was the biggest.
He glowed as if he was a pregnant woman.
I think they meant that he quite literally was glowing in the presence of this
because he's
creepy looking. That was the biggest takeaway from the Saudi Arabia trip, other than the fact, I mean, we talked briefly about the big thing about Melania Trump having to, walk behind him, the fact that she wasn't wearing a veil.
Right.
So those were things, but I think the biggest thing that everyone got caught up on was that creepy orb that was just like, it looked creepy. Like everyone was like putting their hands on it and it's glowing and it's dimly lit.
Who elected President Jafar?
Right. It was, it was definitely something. I mean, I don't really understand the reason why they do that. I don't know what the significance of, putting your hand on a creepy orb is, but it definitely made for a hilarious photo op.
Yeah, good memes to come out of this trip.
Right. So they said at the Vatican, Trump was grinning alongside the Pope, which we'll kind of get into the Pope thing because, oh my God, does Pope Francis not like Donald Trump? I mean, It was extremely apparent the whole time. So I thought that was hilarious. And then in Europe, he had awkward encounters. Obviously, sitting next to all of the democratically elected leaders for the G7
Did you see
summit.
the video where I don't know what leader, like what country this guy represents or whatever, but at the G Summit, Trump, as he walks by, like grabs dude's shoulder and like, pushes him aside. Like,
that was
what the
so
hell was
fucking
that?
dumb. Yeah, I was sitting there.
Ridiculous.
There's a lot of things that I liked about the G7.
I'll put a video to that in the comments for this episode because
if you've been watching it, most
if you
people have
watch it,
seen
you're like, well, what the hell was that? Like,
America first. And just like
Right.
shove the dude. I thought that was a bullshit, stupid move that he should not have done. That was super stupid,
super classless.
Like, I love the fact that he called out everyone on NATO. I thought that was awesome. I know that they were like, oh, look at all the allies. They're squirming. It's like, yeah.
I don't mind that Donald Trump calls people out like that per se. Where I think that a lot of his critics, including myself, get caught up with him is it's okay to react quickly in certain situations. NATO, NAFTA, like
right.
where we know what we're working with isn't a volatile situation. I don't like the constant tweets. I don't like the fact that the thing is that when somebody says something about him, he reacts so quickly that there's no time to have a measured response. And that can be dangerous in the wrong situation. And if, I don't want to get into Russia on this episode, but what I will say is if there was something, if we were actually worried about Putin playing Donald Trump, then his tweets and his reactionary personality, where you can't say something without a response 2 minutes later, then you're literally, as an adversarial country, you're literally watching how this man reacts to things in real time.
Yeah.
That becomes a tool to play him.
Now,
I'm
not
saying that that's what's happening.
Right.
What I'm saying is,
I know that was the big
I
fear.
prefer when he takes foreign trips like this and he stays on message, because he literally stayed on script, and
it ended up being pretty well received.
That makes for a
when it comes to the
measured
Twitter
presidency.
thing, I don't like his Twitter thing. I don't mind it at the same time. So I think that half the time, everything that he says on Twitter, I find stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't like the argument that he can't tweet, because of course he can.
He can. I just think that,
and I don't think it's dangerous. Like, I think that was played up. Everyone was like, "It's dangerous. He's going to tweet nuclear war," and it's like, dude, that's not going to happen.
No, I don't think that, but I do think it is dangerous in that sense that North Korea can watch how Donald Trump reacts to any situation, whether it's talks of nuclear war or whether it's Rosie O'Donnell. Like, we know how this guy reacts to things on a minute by minute basis. And if you're a country that doesn't share U.S. interests and you want to be able to figure out your move to get under America's skin, like, it's really easy to just follow him on Twitter and be like, I don't think he's going to freak out and say some dumb shit, and then he's going to have to walk it back.
I still think that, look at what happened with Syria. Like, when it came to something important, he didn't tweet about it, and he just made his move, and it was there. Right. So I think that when it comes to Twitter, he says dumb shit. Again, it's dumb shit. So it's not.
I get that.
You know what I mean?
It can cause a problem.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. So I appreciate this foreign trip, I guess is where I'm trying to conclude to, because the man stayed on message like a damn president does, and I appreciate that. I still am not a fan of Donald Trump's, but I appreciate acting presidential.
Right.
So
then in Europe at the G7, it says Trump had a more awkward encounter that telegraphed his attitude. A photo of him tightly gripping the hand of French President Emmanuel Macron and video of him appearing to push aside the Prime Minister of Montenegro. That didn't play well. You know what I mean? And
we got to the bottom of where he's from. So. We had to do was read one more sentence.
Right. So basically the biggest point was the optics. I think that if you love Donald Trump, you think that he came off coming America first and you love it. If you hate Donald Trump, you're saying, wow, look at that douchebag bully who's being a big asshole.
I think if you're in the middle,
on the global stage.
I think if you're in the middle, you kind of take my stance.
Yeah, just like, all right,
here's the thing. He did some good things, but, like, don't be a dick.
Right.
So
the second takeaway, the Politico states, is Trump's home run accomplished very little, perhaps by design. So it says, privately, some U.S. officials called the jaunt completely useless. Very few decisions were made at the summit meeting, while Trump played to his base with the America First approach with foreign relations. But the president got away without making any promises that would be hard to keep back in Washington, and managing to reverse positions taken by his predecessor Barack Obama without causing major political rows. So that was the big thing from the G7 summit. Is everyone else affirmed that they were going to be in the Paris Agreement. He did not. And
prediction.
I think he's going to
will.
do it. Yeah, I think absolutely he will.
I don't think he's pulling out of that. I told you earlier that, I imagine that he'll spin it because Donald Trump thinks of things in terms of wins and losses. So he's got to pull out a win. But I would imagine next week when he makes a statement, it'll be something along the lines of, well, France is going to do what I said that they should do, so it's all good now, and it's a better deal. I would imagine that's how that's going to go.
Yeah, and I think that he will do that. I just think that he's right when he says that. Like, when he says...
Maybe. It depends on if they actually did anything.
Right. And I know that he came out and said that after he called out all of the G7 countries for not paying what they said they were going to for NATO's defense, and then him saying, I'm not saying if I'm going to be in the Paris Agreement or not. And also Article 5 of the agreement, which states if one of us is attacked, it's an attack on all of us. He didn't reaffirm his position there. No, they really wanted to do that.
Right.
And he was kind of like, well, why? You guys don't pay for your defense. You don't do anything, which I agree with on face. I understand that they say, like, oh, you're calling out our allies and you're making bad blood with our allies. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. And if they're not paying towards the defense and we have to fit the bill for it, like, what is the point? So I think that us saying no, but you know what? Maybe we're not going to do it.
Right.
Is a fair statement. So then if he claimed, Trump did in Twitter, of course, that they did start pouring in money for NATO's defense.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's so, if he actually was able to call them out, was able to get money in, I think that will be his bargain to go into these agreements.
But what I would urge the listener to do, as well as ourselves over the next weeks, is trace that. Like, let's see.
Make sure he's actually doing it.
Because it's one thing to say that, like, oh, they just decided they're gonna do what they needed to do anyway, so that's a win for us. We negotiated a good deal. It's another thing for that to actually be the case. The fact of the matter is, we talk really tough on Iran since Donald Trump. The other fact of the matter is, we didn't get out of that bad deal that he cited for the entire campaign. And when he came in to the presidency, he said, like, it was like week one, like, this Iran nuclear deal is a bad deal, it's horrible, we're tearing it up and whatever. Well, guess what, folks? He hasn't. Nothing, no policy has changed. Now, they have talked tougher about Iran.
Right.
And I think they have imposed a couple new sanctions on Iran, too.
Yeah, which,
but they,
you know how I feel about sanctions. I think they're stupid.
But they never actually tore that agreement up. The policy still stands as it was signed by Barack Obama.
Right.
So while they spin this illusion that we've done something with Iran, they haven't. So I would just urge people to keep an eye on the NATO
stuff. And you definitely have to look at it and say, you know, if that's your issue, if you want them to go against it, you need to hold them accountable to it. In my opinion, this isn't anything that we haven't seen before. My opinion is that campaign promises tend to look different once you become president.
Yeah, I agree.
And the same thing that we
Guantanamo
saw.
Bay.
Exactly. It was exactly what I was going to bring up, where everyone knew that that's what Barack Obama wanted to do. Mm-hmm. I think that because he didn't do it, there was a reason that he had saw some purpose for it. And I think the same thing with Donald Trump. There's a reason that he thinks we need this.
What I prefer and what I stated throughout the entire 8-year presidency, as far as Barack Obama goes, is I wish those guys then would humble themselves a little bit and come out and be like, look, it's not going to close. Guantanamo is not going to close, and here's why. When I was 2008 candidate Barack Obama, I didn't realize A, B, and C. So because of those factors, I can't shut it down.
Right.
And it wouldn't be good for me to shut it down. And I think that people like me,
they just kind of didn't say anything about it.
Well, and people like me that understand that. Like, for the first 4 years, I was kind of irritated because I was like, why do you keep telling me it's going to happen? It doesn't seem like it's going to happen. And then by year 7, I was like, I get that it's not going to happen. Just, like, be upfront about it. Come out.
Say something and be like.
Tell me that, like, yeah, it can't happen because XYZ.
Was it A, B, and C or was it XYZ? What the fuck?
Man, it's all of it. It's all of it.
So, let's see here. They called it the most difficult G7 summit, basically because if you look at the people who were there, so you had Theresa May from England, who is a liberal, and she's very much for...
Sure, that was uncomfortable after the New York Times leaked some damn information this
week.
That
was crazy. So for people who don't know, there was obviously there was a bombing in Manchester. I almost said London. In Manchester at an Ariana Grande concert. Mm-hmm. And I guess the New York Times somehow got some photos. They leaked the guy's name. Before they were supposed to, because I know that they ended up capturing his brother and his father, and apparently his brother was planning a secondary attack, and they shut that down. But by releasing his name, then
everybody associated with him,
they could have said, "Hey, man, they're looking for you."
Well, not
to
only
get
did
out of
they
here.
say his name, they said his name. They showed what he was wearing, and they said, like, we know that there's a sophisticated bomb maker involved with this because this 22-year-old kid who blew himself up. That's not how it works. Like that's not how those organizations work. The guy who makes the bomb, the sophisticated bomb, like this one was. Is an asset to the organization. That guy doesn't blow himself up.
No, he continues to do the things that work with the terrorists.
So, the fact that they leaked all that stuff, well, now...
And the pictures of the bomb materials.
Whoever that guy is like, shit, I'm getting out of town. Because,
they caught me.
Right. So,
Theresa May was not having it.
So the way that ties into the G7 summit, though, is, like you said, Theresa May was not having it, and...
I think it was strong on her. I agreed with her. I was like... I think she said that they're not sharing any more information with the U.S., which sucks. but I completely understand why she did it.
She's changed that since.
Has she gone back on it?
Yeah. So what happened was they it was like a 48-hour freeze on intelligence between the United States, and I don't think it was ever intended to be more than that.
Yeah. Just like until this is over.
And I think when I saw those comments, first of all, it's Britain and the United States. It's going to take more than leaking. So, like, it sucks, and it is harmful to both countries, but it's going to take more than that for Britain to be like, okay, our whole relationship is on freeze.
Right,
like,
they're relying on us a lot now that the Brexit's going on and everything.
Right, so they're not going to do that. So it was I think it was like the day of or the day after Donald Trump apologized for the media leaking it.
Which I think was the right thing for him to do.
I think it was too. But let's just state, this is stop one on the apology tour of Donald Trump.
He bowed to the Saudi prince. I can't believe it.
Right. So I think he's a Muslim.
Right. Right. So I think that everyone was doing the right thing there. But regardless, it made for some tense moments.
Yeah,
their policies couldn't be more different. Like, even though they had a referendum and England has decided to get out of the EU, Theresa May is very much for the EU. And there was some talk that she was going to override it and just not follow through with the referendum. She ended up coming out and affirming, yes, this is the date, we will remove ourselves and all of that. But for a while, they didn't think they were going to, because that whole referendum thing was kind of like supposed to bolster up support for the EU side of it, and it just didn't turn out the way they wanted it to.
Yeah.
So you had that. You had the French president, Emmanuel Macron, who has gone on against Trump his entire campaign, and obviously was...
Well, he's like a super liberal, isn't he?
No, he's not. He's a corporatist. Okay. But, so you think that they would have more ties, but in France, that's still very liberal. They're still a very liberal country, and he does not like Trump, all of that. You had Canada with Justin Trudeau, who is completely the anti-Trump as well. I mean, he had the bromance going on with Barack Obama.
I feel sad for him, too, because he just told everybody in Canada, you need to root for the Ottawa Senators. And guess what happened, Canada? You didn't root hard enough, and stupid-ass Sidney Crosby is on his way to another Stanley Cup. Oh, my God.
I can't believe it.
Where was the French-Canadian love?
No, man. It was gone.
It's all your fault, Montreal.
Yeah. Then you had Germany with Angela Merkel, who again is very much pro EU and all of that. So you had those were at least four of them, and I don't know much about the new Italian president, dictator. I don't know what they do there. I know he was brand new.
I think it's a dictator.
I don't know.
That's Stalin.
It was Mussolini, but
oh right, yeah.
But and then who was the other people? And then I guess obviously the EU had a representative there, and then America was there. But so basically he was one of the only conservative voices there. So they very much wanted him to be on message with what they were doing, and he was not. He basically had to walk back all of the positions that Barack Obama had previously stated and all of that. So that was the other big thing that was coming out of this foreign trip is he looked very comfortable with the Saudi princes, King Salman. He looked very comfortable in Israel with Benjamin Netanyahu. And a couple good things came out of that as well, where Benjamin Netanyahu was saying that they approved some housing for Palestinians on the East Bank, which is awesome. I mean, that has been a big contentious issue of him
show it
settlements. Well, we'll see. Yeah, I mean, they said they're approving it, so they're going to have to build it and whatnot and do that. But that's something good that came out of it. I know that they're really taking it seriously, that they want to try for peace. And I think that's a huge deal. And if they can do it,
it's
that's
a huge
awesome.
deal. I think you're putting more stock into it. Like, it's a 3,000-year-old war. So
yeah, but between Israel,
if President Orange can come in and just
always bring up his color. But
racist.
All the Oompa Loompas out there, man.
Right.
He's just representing them. Diversity.
Man, I'm just so hard on the Simpsons characters.
Right.
But
they were yellow.
But yeah, I don't.
It's a big thing. And again, it's only been like 70 years between the Israelis and the Palestinians. That war. I mean, Palestine's been at war with all different people.
I don't take Benjamin Netanyahu at his word at all. I'm not a fan.
He doesn't like it. Yeah, I know that he doesn't like the whole let's start giving the Palestinians more thing, because to be fair, the Palestinians' position are kill all Israelis. So that's not someone that I typically want to shake their hand.
The Palestinian government, which is like
the
6 people.
I'm forgetting their damn name right now, but yeah,
Hezbollah. Is it Hezbollah?
Yeah.
Which
so.
like it was at one point. If it's not, or is it? It's not Hamas.
It is Hamas.
It
that
is
was the word I
Hamas?
was thinking. Yeah, that's the
Okay.
word I was thinking of. I just couldn't grasp it. But yeah, I mean, and like I said, they came back and they a couple weeks ago they were like, all right, we're changing our position. We don't want to kill all the Palestinians. And then one of the leaders came out and was like, fuck that, we do want to kill all the all the Israelis. I said yeah, Palestinians. I meant Israelis. So it's hard to want to shake those guys' hands. I understand why they feel that way because Israel kind of came in and conquered their land and just kind of pushed them off and built a wall around them.
I agree with that, and I think that it's fair to label them a terrorist organization, or at least I guess
militant.
Would you call the Taliban a terrorist organization?
I would.
They were a government.
Yeah, I would because.
But I would call kind of Hamas. I would call Hamas kind of the same thing, where
they are a political establishment,
right?
You know,
and they should be removed. Like, not by Israel, because that's going to create problems.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of Palestinians that just want peace, and I think there's a lot of Israelis that just want peace as well. Yeah. And I think that. You know but it's hard to do that whenever people are getting bombed and killed.
Here's what I'll say to the audience too, and this is just a great opportunity for me to plug one of my favorite films that I've ever watched. But I think it really gives you a different perspective on the Israeli-Palestine, because America, we've grown up knowing that our generation has grown up knowing that Israel is our friend. That's our interest. We are going, and like I think a lot of times, a lot of people that I have this discussion with blindly support Israel because they have been told to support. Well, that's where Jesus was born, so I guess we like those guys.
No big deal.
Here's
Isn't
the
Bethlehem
thing,
in Palestine?
No,
is it?
I don't think so. I think it's in Israel.
Okay. No, yeah, because they were trying to move it to. Okay, I'm getting confused.
Here's what I will say: watch. Oh my God!
I know the movie. I can't think of the title.
Paradise Now.
Paradise Now.
Paradise Now is a foreign film that is shot on the border of Israel and Palestine.
Quite literally, they were shot.
Yes, and in the making of the film, there was a scene in particular where Palestinians run across the border of Israel. And so first of all, here's why I would tell you to watch this movie, because looking at Palestine and looking at Israel, really, like your real life looking at the fence that separates a golden city from a war-torn street, essentially. It's surreal. You get to see something that you're not going to see on the news. You're not going to see. So, like, you really get to look into that and be like, holy crap, this is hard to look at. This isn't how two neighborhoods should be next to each other.
Well, just look at pictures of Damascus before the bombing. I mean, it looks like New York or Dubai or something. It looks incredible.
But in this film, there was the people who were filming it had to go to the Israeli guards that sit on the chain link fence that separates Golden City from Dirt Row, and they had to tell the guards, don't shoot our actors. We're shooting a movie. They're running across this fence. Don't shoot them. Because Israel was really shooting at other people that were close to the fence at the time. But I would say, watch the film.
It's good because it shows people changing their minds. They have their positions. Lots of things get kind of muddled. And it shows just the inner conflict of both sides. Of just where... You can tell both people want peace, but it's really good.
Yeah, it is good, and I won't comment on the plot of the film, and I won't tell you that you should be on a certain side of this conflict. What I would tell you though is that you should actually look inside Israel and Palestine with your eyes instead of just through articles, because when you see it's much different than when you just talk about it. So anyway,
yeah. We can do a whole segment on Palestine and Israel at some point, because we really can. But it's definitely an issue.
I applaud I applaud every administration who has the idea that we are going to help bring peace to the Middle East. I just don't buy it.
Yeah, we'll have to see it.
And I think that if anybody was going to do it, we got as close as we were going to get with Jimmy Carter. And
he did, what was it, Egypt?
I think it was Egypt and Israel. I think so.
I think so.
I wasn't alive, so I don't know.
Yeah. Right.
But I do know that like they were able to get an agreement done, and I don't know, especially with the players in the Middle East right now, if that's attainable.
And Egypt right now is in complete turmoil.
Right.
I mean, you saw that with the Muslim Brotherhood, and then they kicked that guy out, and now they're killing Christians left and right in Egypt. Egypt is not doing well.
No, the Arab Spring didn't do great things for the region.
Right. And some people ended up doing great things, and other people just, I mean, that's the nature of war. Sides win, sides lose.
Yeah.
But I think going back to Trump's trip, he seemed very comfortable in Saudi Arabia. Yeah. He seemed very comfortable in Israel.
Well, I think
he did not. I didn't think he looked comfortable at all with the Pope. Did you see that when he tries to hold the Pope's hand, he gets super pissed. He's like, "Get out of here!"
I actually thought
no one wants to hold his hand.
Like, I actually thought that was fake when I first saw it.
I thought,
that is so weird.
Oh my god, it was so funny. He just smiles like a ding dong at the camera. He's like, no one wants to hold his hand. Melania won't hold his hand.
Nope.
The Pope won't hold his hand.
Melania's planning the divorce, though. Like,
yeah, I think that whenever the whole pussy grabbing incident like really shook her and was like no, screw him.
I'm sorry, but like I'm calling that right now. If he had
I think
not
they'll save
won,
face.
If he had not won the presidency, they would already not be together.
I think so. I think that they're going to save face and not do anything for the term of the presidency.
Right.
But I don't think that they are on good terms.
No.
That's complete conjecture. That's entertainment side coming out, but
that's body language reading.
Yeah,
like, that's really what it is.
She doesn't seem to enjoy his company.
No.
And I mean, Mike Pence wouldn't kiss him. I mean, it's just there's no love for Donald Trump in the inner circle.
No love. They hate us because they ain't us.
Right. So, but I mean, and then I know there was.
Well, before we get into the Pope, let's just finish up on Saudi Arabia because we kind of jumped all over in this segment.
Yeah.
But, I think the reason he was so comfortable, to your point, in Saudi Arabia is because it seems like he knew he was making a deal before he went over there.
Yeah.
And the deal that he made was $110 billion.
Man, it's an arms deal. I know that. I can't remember the exact. I thought it was $100 billion.
I think it is. So $110 billion weapon deal between the United States and Saudi Arabia, and
they do a lot of stuff against Iran.
Over 10 years, that's supposed to turn into $350 billion,
something like that. Yeah.
So that seems good.
Yeah.
If you're somebody who, like, obviously that's going to create jobs. It's going to, like, the stock.
Well, yeah,
we're going to make money off that. That's good. We're overlooking a lot of human rights violations and a lot of conflicting interests. There's a lot of and I don't know how it is right now in 2017, but I know in the past that Saudi Arabia, in the recent past, Saudi Arabia is known to fund all kinds of things, all kinds of mosques, all kinds of, like, whatever.
Well, then it goes back to
I don't have a problem with that, except for the fact that a lot of those mosques end up turning into terror cells, because there are terror cells that mask themselves. It's kind of, what bad guys do. And so Saudi Arabia, some could say that they know that they're doing it. Some could say that unbeknownst to them, they are funding terrorism. So how smart is it to hand over $350 billion worth of weapons that could then potentially be used against us by ISIS or by Hezbollah or, insert terrorist organization here?
So I actually did some research on it just because that was a question that I had, was why the fuck do we enjoy making deals with Saudi Arabia? And most of it had to do with Iran. And they allow us to fly over the Arabian Peninsula, which is extremely important to us. But then I was like, well, didn't they fund the 9/11 guys? So I looked more into that, and I guess there was like 6 or 7 of them that were from Saudi Arabia, the people who hijacked the planes and whatnot.
That was 17 of 19.
Well, I don't think it was that many.
I think it was. I think there was one guy, no one from Afghanistan. There was oh, man, I'll have to look it up. I'll find it and
the
link
big controversy was in the 9/11 Commission, there was 28 pages that were missing. And a lot of people claimed that was because it was showing that they had ties to the Saudi princes. And so they eventually did publish that with a bunch of names redacted, and it looked like there was a few Saudi princes who had given money whether they knew if that's what they were being used for or not, but they had given large sums of money to some of these people that ended up going on to be terrorists. So again, that was 2001. This is 16 years later.
Right.
Things could be different. I don't know the whole
right,
landscape.
But it's also
of it.
hard too, based on. See, my thing is, and what I would expect the case is for most of the audience is that I don't keep up with Saudi Arabian politics, so when I don't remember which Saudi prince.
There's like a million of them.
When that press conference happened, where Donald Trump and he were standing side by side, and they were asked a question about well, you guys are bombing the shit out of Yemen right now, and
Yemen is
all of these things
huge issue
at
the moment.
People are starving there, and you guys aren't letting food get in, and blah blah. And this is Saudi Arabia, not the United States.
Right. But we help them,
but
and we're bombing quite a bit in Yemen.
But then the Saudi prince response was, well, actually, these people in Yemen are the bad guys. Not the citizens, but this organization is the bad guys. They started it. They blah blah. The problem that I have with those answers, while they sound good and while it sounds like I can sit there in my living room and watch it on TV and be like, well, that's a reasonable explanation, I don't know.
Right.
So when just because some guy on the other side of the world gets up and says, no, that guy's the bad guy, well, I bet you that Stalin and Mussolini and Hitler would tell you who the bad guy was too, but we probably didn't agree with their assessment. So, I try to take those things with a grain of salt.
You have to, just because we, like you said, we don't know.
Right.
And I know that during Barack Obama's tenure, they really amped up bombings in Yemen and enabling the Saudis to fight that war.
Right.
So I'm assuming there's a reason behind it.
Barack, my biggest criticism. There was a huge criticism of mine throughout the whole thing. I didn't here's my thing, and one thing you'll come to know about me is that I'm not a fan of Saudi Arabia, and I'm not a fan of Israel. And now you might say, well, Brandon and Mitch, you just stated that those are our two best friends in the Middle East.
Anti-Semitic wall!
Yeah, they are, but I don't know that they should be. So I understand
I
the
have the
strategic
personal
advantage.
That's exactly right. That's kind of where I sit. I understand that this is why we're doing it. I don't particularly love it.
Right.
But
that's kind of.
I assumed if Obama was doing it, there was a reason that he wouldn't just decide to help Saudi Arabia bomb Yemen because they did it quite a bit. They were dropping bombs.
Yeah, I don't think that Barack Obama is the kind of guy that is oh, you're killing innocent people? Here, let me help. Now, Donald Trump, on the other hand. Every day. He's killing bitches, killing pussies.
Right. So moving on back to the G7 summit here, it says Trump finally took a position on Russia. So while the G7 allies weren't able to nail down Trump's stance on the Paris Climate Accord, which he said he's going to be releasing next week, they did get some more clarity on the administration's position concerning sanctions against Russia. So apparently they said that we're not lowering our sanctions on Russia. If anything, we're probably going to look to get tougher on Russia. Finally, the final G7 communique.
Let's just clarify, though. That statement came a day after they said, we don't have a position on Russia.
Right, yeah. So they originally came out with,
that was a
we're
cleanup
not doing it. Yeah. And Russia, it used to be a G8 summit. Right. So Russia used to be involved in these meetings.
Until Russia decided that Crimea was theirs, and then they...
Historically it is. But for the past, 20 or 30 years, it wasn't.
Right, but... We're not,
I'm just saying,
we're not supporting the rebuild of the Soviet Union like Putin's trying to.
Right. I'm just saying, for me, that's a contentious issue. Like I said, it's 90% Russian. It's historically it's part of Russia. So
ask Crimea if they're part of Russia. I bet you they'll tell you that they're not.
The big thing about Crimea is that it's very oil rich, and that's why they basically took it from Russia took it away from Russia as a slap on the wrist, and whenever Russia was weak. And so now they want it back because obviously that helps their economy.
Right.
So I understand. To me, that's a very weird and sticky issue when it comes to it. I understand that we shouldn't.
I don't know that you can just go You can't just take it, though. Like, there's an issue with just taking
from. I mean, to me, it was weird.
Yeah, but it wasn't taken from them forcefully. It was taken politically from them.
Well, they just weren't weak enough to defend it.
Right.
Or they weren't strong enough to defend it. They were too weak.
Yeah, but it wasn't taken with armies. It was taken with papers. There are agreements that happened that made that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying
but it was backed up with,
when you send a military in and you take it, like, now you've crossed a line that you don't cross if there's a paper trail. So
again, like I said, for me,
my argument there.
Yeah, and I totally understand it. To me, it's a little bit.
I don't
stickier,
mind.
but.
Like, I don't have an opinion on whether Crimea should be separate or part of Russia. I just don't think that countries should go in with militaries and be like, "Well, this is mine now."
Annexed.
Hey, Mexico, you know what? We're not going to build a wall. You're just us now, and you're going to pay taxes.
Well, we did do that with Texas and all the other places, so we have done that in the past. Yeah, but regardless,
for like $12. So.
Right. So regardless, that's kind of what they were doing. They've been throwing sanctions at Russia before the annexation of Crimea. They kicked them out of the G8 summit, became a G7 summit. So the final communique, which I'm assuming is the final script, basically, of these are the things that we affirm to these countries, was maintained a hard line on Russia. Donald Trump signed off on it. Mm-hmm. So we finally have something in writing where he's saying, we're going to be tough against Russia, which obviously he's been looking for better ties. The whole Russia thing has been kind of muddling that so where he can't really talk to Russia without it looking shadier than it already does. Mm-hmm. So I think that in this hypothetical world that we like to live in with the Russia thing, Russia got screwed on that deal.
Like, literally, like 5 seconds after you said shadier than it already does.
It does look shady.
But by the way, there's probably
there's no doubt that things look shady. Whether that constitutes to something ever happening, is a totally different story.
Right, and I agree with you on that. And like I said, if nothing happens, and I've maintained this, if there's nothing there, Democrats move on because there's nothing there.
Right.
But you have to admit that it looks shady.
Of course it looks shady.
It looks shady.
You're going to hear that every time.
Right.
I think that they're making it look shadier than it actually is. Like when they bring up the Jared Kushner thing and they're like, breaking news, he's not being investigated.
Yeah, but then but then we had another anonymous source say that they were trying to do something technological with Russia, like set up
some sort. I heard that was the thing, and I didn't put too much stock into it. When they get evidence, I'll pay attention.
All I know is that when Jared Kushner and Steve Bannon are wearing matching orange rompers in jail, then what the hell is that? We'll talk about that later.
A romper?
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Dudes,
the final point. I know. Go back to the Frank Sinatra days. That fashion was cool. Anyway, for the final point there was that Trump was hoping for a reset, but he at least he got to avoid trouble at home for a week.
Right.
So he didn't. It wasn't a reset.
No.
CNN is still on the Russia thing, and we're still moving forward with it.
Well, and did you see when he landed back in D.C.? Like he literally gets off the plane. He gets off the plane with Melania. Walks to the door, does his wave, comes down, salutes the Marines, and it takes maybe 5 steps. And this reporter is like, Mr. Trump, did Jared Kushner?
God damn it. I'm going back to Saudi Arabia.
Right. So it's just like, man, they're just going to bury it. Like, they're not going to let him. He can't get away from it for 1 second at home. So, it had to be such a breath of fresh air to just go away and be like, man, I'm not taking questions. I'm not doing anything.
Exactly.
The second I step back on American soil, and man, I'll be damned if the New York Times didn't miss that beat.
No, I know. And so he was definitely looking to kind of he did get away from it.
Yeah,
and like I said, it did look good. I think that there's some people, like we said, if they were looking for it to be a slam dunk. If you already don't like him, you think it wasn't because there was the weird orb and the hand slapping from
the Pope.
I think that if you like Donald Trump, you think it was great. But the Russia thing is he didn't get away from it. So now that we're coming back into it, we're going to see it.
Right. And we will. And I didn't really expect anything different. We talked about it a few days ago while he was in the middle of the foreign trip, and I said, just wait, because 5 days from now, they're going to be talking about Russia again. So, anyway, But
final thoughts, I think that it was a successful trip. I think that it definitely showcased America first. I think there were some stupid moments where he's pushing people. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Montenegro, I mean, I don't know much about them, but maybe don't throw their leaders aside.
Right.
America first.
I
think it was a win though. I think that
I would conclude my conclusion on it was just kind of, I'm not going to call it a wash because that's like a demeaning and I'm not trying
Didn't matter.
I'm not trying to belittle
we got
it
good
at
things
all.
out of it in Israel. We got good things out of it in Saudi Arabia.
We got projected good things out of it. Now what I will say is that like you're never going to hear somebody say like, oh, $350 billion arms deal is going to create jobs. Those jobs are good things. I don't know if the way we got those jobs is the best way. I will tell you, if you're investing, like Lockheed Martin is probably where you want to put your money right now.
Right. To me, when it goes back to arming the rebels. We thought that was a good idea. Mm-hmm. It wasn't. And the big argument there was we don't know who the rebels are.
Right.
We know Saudi Arabia.
So
we know what they're supposed to be using the weapons for. So I think it's a good deal.
I would
but
like
who
to
knows?
know, though, that the one thing that the one question that hasn't been answered, as Donald Trump was walking out of his meeting with the Pope, he was overheard saying that, like, I will never forget what you told me. And I would like to know what that is. I really would. Like, I would like to know what the Pope said to him because
I think the Pope's holding a grudge too,
because
he went against him in the campaign too.
That statement, though, like, I'll never forget what you told me, seemed very genuine and so I would be interested in how that conversation finished.
That was Trump saying that to the Pope?
Yes. And so I'd be interested in knowing what that was. And we may never find that out.
Yeah.
Hopefully somebody closer to Trump than me asked that question because I would really be interested in what that was.
Right.
But I don't think it was I'm not going to be one of those liberals that tells you this was a horrible trip. I don't think it was a horrible trip. I would like to see I would like to follow the paper trail of the money in Saudi Arabia and see where that goes. Or not,
I think it's a more sure bet
weapons.
than arming the rebels.
I would like to follow the weapons in Saudi Arabia and see where they go.
Who is the Attorney General? Eric Holder. Fast
right.
and Furious.
Yes. And I thought
put crackers in the weapons. Oops, we forgot them.
Yeah, no, I thought of that as I was saying it, and but I would like to see where those weapons go because I would like to know if the next time this deal presents itself, if we should take it.
Right.
Because the fact of the matter is, if those weapons do go to places that they shouldn't go, then we should not make this deal, even if it's
right.
I
don't know how politically feasible it is, but I think any weapons we sell should have trackers in them so we can see where they're going. Yeah. And they should have little explosives put in them. So if they fall into the wrong hands, we go, boop, you ain't using them.
You're not using them. We're blowing your shit off.
That's probably completely improbable, but I think that's what should happen.
We're going James Bond. Bond now. So anyway, I think in conclusion, the week was a week for him to get away from stuff. He did that successfully while he was away.
Yep.
It's back now.
Yeah, now he's back. So we'll see what happens at this point.
But I don't think it was a horrible trip. It was decent. So
yeah, I think so.